Big day in baseball today. It is the non-tender deadline coming up at 8 Eastern tonight. Teams have to offer players with fewer than 6 years of service time on a 40-man roster a contract for the upcoming season. If not, the player technically becomes a free agent. With that, let's say good morning to MLB.com's Mark Feinsand. You know, there's a lot more complexity to the non-waiver deadline this year than ever before. For obvious reasons, Mark, the uncertainty caused by the pandemic. What are we to expect come 8 o'clock tonight?
I think you'll see more players than usual getting non-tendered, but I don't think you'll see more big stars than usual. It's very rare for a big star player to be non-tendered. I know we've heard about the likes of Chris Bryant and Gary Sanchez and names like that. Eddie Rosario could be the biggest name we see tonight. But if you think about last year, Kevin Gausman was non-tendered, and then he ended up having a good enough year to get a qualifying offer. So some impactful players will be let go tonight. But I think between now and 8 p.m., we'll also see just a slew of one-year arbitration or one-year deals, for players arbitration eligible to stay with their teams and not go through that process.
Well, Mark, I think it's interesting how this affects a trade. You know, were you able to move a guy? They've been discussing it. And then I think the other part that will play into this is we don't have people sitting in front of each other like we do at the winter meetings. You know, so I think you may see some players get moved that maybe not, I should say non-tendered, that maybe not would have happened had they been able to be traded in a normal winter time of season sitting in front of the other GM or whatever. So it will be an interesting night. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, the winter meetings would have still been a week away. I don't know how much that goes into the non-tender deadline. But I think with the trade scenario, teams that are out there aggressively shopping players who are potential non-tender candidates, other teams know that there's a chance those guys could just be free agents within a week. So you're not going to give up a ton. Eddie Rosario was placed on outright waivers last night. So any team can claim him right now for nothing just to, pay his salary in 2021. If that doesn't happen, then you could see the Twins saying to him, look, we're going to non-tender you because we don't want to pay you what that arbitration number is going to be. Or you see no other team is willing to pay that either. Why don't you re-sign with us at a lesser price? So there's a lot of machinations that goes on into what happens today. But certainly I think the fact that the teams are out there trying to trade guys, if they're not getting bites, I think a lot of teams just think those guys might wind up being free agents.
Yeah, let's stay on Eddie Rosario for a second, because I think this is one of those key players and one of those kind of key episodes in this offseason from which we can draw some conclusions, not unlike the Cleveland Indians' decision to DFA Brad Hand as opposed to picking up his option or paying his buyout. If in fact Eddie Rosario is not claimed by anybody, and then he goes back as property of the Twins and he's non-tendered, that speaks volumes, because this has been a super productive, not to mention popular player over the last 3 years for the Twins. Granted, the on-base isn't where they want to see it. He does strike out, but he was right in the middle of the success the Bomba squad had the last few years. He drives in runs. He's a good defensive player. He hits homers, and for nobody to claim him, that would be shocking to me. Do you anticipate his being claimed, or is in fact he going to stay with the Twins and be non-tendered?
No, I don't anticipate he's going to be claimed. Of course, anything can happen. I think he will stay with the Twins through the day, and I think he will be non-tendered. But I could also see an agreement between him and the Twins where he gets non-tendered and then re-signs with them at a lower cost than what he might have made in arbitration, knowing that if he gets non-tendered, becomes a free agent, he's not going to get the number that he would have gotten in arbitration most likely, because if he was, a team would have claimed him. So if he goes unclaimed, that does speak volumes about how the league views him, and maybe that prompts his agent and him to cut a deal with the Twins to come back at a lower price. I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. I think you could see a lot of players who get non-tendered end up signing back with their team at a lower price. We've already seen a whole bunch of these one-year deals, with guys settling for numbers that were probably a little less than what they would have gotten in arbitration. But in this market, for the club, it's some cost certainty, and for the player, it's some job certainty. So It's really an interesting thing going forward here in the next 12 hours or so.
Oh, Harold sounds like he's underwater.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one who heard that.
What could go wrong, right? We're doing a show from home. Interesting. Okay.
Live TV, great.
Mark is going to rejoin it. Mark is going to rejoin us later, but before we let you go, give us, I hate speculating on stuff like this, and I know you do too, but it is appropriate and fair to do on a day like this. Are there other non-tender candidates out there in addition to Eddie Rosario?
I mean, there are a lot of candidates. You know, the names that have been getting the most attention are guys like Chris Bryant, Gary Sanchez, Kyle Schwarber. I don't see any of those big names being non-tendered. There's too much value there for them to really go. I think the mid-level players, a couple of executives said to me, the first-year arbitration guys probably have nothing to worry about. Their salaries don't get big enough in that first year to make them think about getting non-tendered very often. It's the middle guys who could really have the tough sledding. The guys who are looking to make somewhere between $6 and $10 million. Those are players the teams are going to be taking long, hard looks at. And so I think there could be a number of guys out there who will immediately become, wanted free agents out there on the market.
I'm back. Maybe I'm not.
Hi, Harold.
Welcome back.
Matt? Hey, Here's my thought real quick on this whole thing. I think this is the big wake-up call, elephant in the room, that we've gone through a pandemic. We had no fans, and I don't want to sound like the Debbie Downer, but this is going to be a wake-up call for the industry to see where we're really at. And I think there will be a lot of players get non-tendered. There will be situations where they're not going to get the money they're expecting. And I do believe the big players are going to get their money in free agent market, but this is a big wake-up call, and it'll tell us a lot for setting the trend for the rest of the winter.
I could see that being the case, Harold, but at the same time, and maybe we'll talk about this later, the starting pitching market so far has been pretty healthy for free agents, right? So I think it depends on what teams are looking for. One-year deals, but one-year deals going into a year where we don't know if there are going to be fans in the seats or not. We don't know what revenues are going to look like, and they're still getting pretty good deals. So I think this, again, the mid-level player is the one who I think has the most to worry about. Like you said, I think the stars are going to get their money. Springer, Real Muto, Bauer, those guys are going to get paid. These mid-level free agents are the ones who are going to have to be a little more concerned.